Ciao everyone and welcome back to another episode of Learn Italian with Songs. Today we are going to talk about E la luna bussò by Loredana Bertè, because it was a request, and in fact remember that if you have any specific song in mind that you would like me to talk about, just let me know in the comments and I'm going to talk about it without any issue. And now I am waiting for YouTube to not fail me. Okay, YouTube did not fail me. Very good. So, e la luna bussò, usually with the 3 dots, which are called in Italian reticenza, and usually are a punctuation sign that conveys suspension, or generally that conveys the fact that there is something before that sentence. And in fact, this is pretty much the idea, because normally you wouldn't start in Italian a sentence with e, and, because and, or in Italian e, implies the fact that there was something before it, right? And that's why we have the 3 dots, because this is going to be the start of the song, as we are going to see briefly, like in a moment, when we are going to analyze in detail the lyrics. And it starts, like we say in Italian, in medias res, so in the middle of the story. It is not linear, so it doesn't have a start, like a premise, an introduction, and then the continuation of the story, but starts already when the story already started, when the story already began. So, literally, the title translates as "And the Moon Knocked," was interpreted by Loredana Bertè, because Loredana Bertè, despite having written many of her songs, here it is actually interpreting it. The song was part of one of the albums by Loredana Bertè titled Banda Bertè, and it was released in the year 1979, so we are talking about a fair amount of years ago. Why is it so famous? Well, first of all, because banally had success. It was very appreciated, and in fact it is one of the most famous songs by Loredana Bertè. We are on the levels of probably the most famous song by Loredana Bertè, which is Non sono una signora, so we are around those levels. But this song has a peculiarity. Yes, the lyrics is interesting, but probably the most interesting thing about this song is the music. And in fact, this song is considered one of the first, if not the first, in the absolute, like generally, reggae song that was born in Italy, because of course reggae is not an Italian genre of music. It originated in the Central America / South America, if I remember correctly. And it was something new in those years in Italy. And in fact, that's why this is considered probably the first reggae song that was born in Italy. But we are interested in the lyrics. So what are the lyrics about? What's the song about? The song tells the story through a big metaphor of a woman, represented in the metaphor by the moon, who feels abandoned, rejected, thus marginalized, and this whole situation is representing by the moon, as I said, representing the woman, knocking at various doors, but being ignored. Only in the chorus she is going to find her place ok? Per se, the song is quite simple and also quite brief, because it has a first verse, a second verse, and then the chorus repeated 2 times. Between the 2 chorus, we have a consistent, like quite of a big bridge, but where she's not singing, it is only instrumental. So, not the classical structure of a song, but still quite simple and yet powerful in its simplicity. Because, as I said, just because a song is short, fun fact, technically, if we count also the music, it is not short at all because it lasts more than 4 minutes. But if we look at the lyrics, the story is quite simple, is quite short, but sometimes less is more. That said, let's dive into the lyrics, shall we? So, let's start, as I said, with the first verse. And as promised, we start with E la luna bussò alle porte del buio, and the moon knocked on the doors of darkness. Fammi entrare. Lui rispose di no. Let me in. He said no. E la luna bussò dove c'era il silenzio, and the moon knocked where there was silence. Ma una voce sguaiata disse: non è più tempo. But a loud, as in vulgar, voice said, it's no longer time. Quindi spalancò le finestre del vento e se ne andò. Then she threw open the windows of the wind and went away. A cercare, un po' più in là, qualche cosa da fare. To look a little farther away for something to do. Dopo aver pianto un po', per un altro no. Per un altro no. After having cried a little, for another no, for another no. Che le disse il mare, che le disse il mare. That the sea told her, that the sea told her. Now, I personally see here the structure of a story. If you just take the lyrics as they are and you read them like I did, seems pretty much a story, even a children's story, right? Because we have this moon doing several things. So, what is the first thing that this moon does? She knocks at the doors, plural, important. Is it because in Italian we have doors only plural? No, we have the singular form of porte, which is porta, la porta, le porte. However, usually le porte, so plural, symbolizes more the beginning of something, like the entrance, okay, when you're about to enter somewhere. Because the darkness doesn't really have doors. You approach darkness, most likely. So we have this moon. This moon represents our female protagonist. But why the moon? First of all, because the moon, in Italian culture, but in many other cultures, represents femininity, energy, introspection, mystery, usually opposed to everything that the sun symbolizes, because the sun, this is, for example, you can find it also in the tarots, in the arcanas. I think they are called arcanas, because I'm thinking about the Italian name. So, in the arcanas, you have the sun and the moon represents everything that the sun is not representing. So, as I said, while the sun represents masculinity, the moon represents femininity. The sun is usually associated to rationality, to what is conscious, okay, to your consciousness, while the moon, everything that is in your unconscious, that is hidden, the dimension of dreams, and thus introspection. So she knocks at the doors of darkness. Now, I don't know if here I'm seeing things, could be, but I would like to point this out. Now, you can say darkness in Italian in two main ways. One is buio, which is a masculine noun, so il buio. And then you have another way, which is l'oscurità, which stands for la oscurità, feminine. Now, of course, here there was a need for metrics, so of course, buio and oscurità have a different number of syllables, so probably it was due to metric reasons. But the fact that the moon knocks, so the moon feminine, in fact, the moon also has a feminine grammatical gender, because remember that everything is gendered in Italian, everything is either feminine or masculine. And fun fact, in many Neo-Latin languages, moon is feminine opposed to the sun, which is masculine. This is not for everyone, for all the languages. In fact, for example, other languages, for example, German, having genders, the moon is feminine and the sun, the moon is masculine and the sun is feminine. So, of course, words give us, as native speakers from languages with gender nouns, gives us ideas for personifications. If you ask an Italian person to think about the moon, yes, they will think about the satellite. But if you ask them to personify them, chances are they will try to match the gender of the grammatical gender of the word. So, la luna, feminine, il buio, masculine, l'oscurità, feminine. The fact that here we have a feminine element going to a masculine element could be because of the metrics, of course, but could be also to foster this opposition. And so the moon asks, let me in, but the darkness says, hell no. So she was away, and she goes to knock to another door. And there was silence. But in the silence, a voce sguaiata, which is sguaiato, is a very peculiar adjective in Italian because it has a slightly negative nuance. Usually more than voice it is laughter. Una risata sguaiata, it is a laughter that is like loud but in an unpleasant way. Like it is not something polite, it's not something well seen. That's why I'm saying keep in mind that this has a slightly negative connotation. And said, non è più tempo, it's no longer time. Now, we have darkness and we have silence. Here, what they represent, I cannot say for sure. I can tell you what usually these two elements represent. So, darkness, il buio. It could be the unknown. It could be the unconscious. It could represent negative feelings, so fear, depression, rejection. And as I said, they picked a masculine noun despite having as well a feminine option. And then we have the silence. What is the silence? Could be emotionally emptiness, could be indifference, but it could be also meaning the action of stay silent, so to silence yourself. So this woman went towards darkness, which generally is associated with bad things. and got rejected, so probably something positive. Then she went into silence. But someone, like a voice, said, "It is not time for silence." We could see this rejection as something negative, but is it? I'm not sure, to be honest. Because that voice, yes, can come out that silence so externally, but it could also be a voice from her inside. Because the whole point is that here the moon, so the woman, is looking for her place to be. And her place is not, metaphorically speaking, in staying silent, probably. Again, this is a possible interpretation. I have no certain answers, only theories. And so, no place in the darkness, which usually it is also the place of the moon, because if we have to imagine the moon, where is it? In the night, in the darkness. And again, they could have used notte, bussò alle porte della notte. But again, could be because of metrics, could be because of the opposition of grammatical genders of the nouns. They, however, pick the word buio. So, generally, the moon is supposed to be in the darkness, but her place, her designated place where she should have been, is not her place. The silence, like being silent, is no longer time to stay in silence. And so she goes away with this metaphor of the wind, which usually represents freedom and many other travel and many other positive things. And so she keeps traveling. And she gets rejected again and again. We can tell it from the repetitions, because per un altro no, repeated 2 times, for another no. And again, the repetition of the sea, probably because she went to the sea several times. Again, we have another masculine noun, so we have il buio, il silenzio, il mare. Could be they pick 3 nouns, grammatically masculine gendered. Could be because of they symbolize. Here, I don't know. Usually, again, the sea is something related to the moon, because, of course, the movements, the cycles of the moon influence the sea. So even something that is supposed to be related, to be close to the moon, to follow her, rejects her. So in this first verse, I would say we have a general idea of a woman that was supposed to be in certain places, probably because of what society wanted, but those places that she was supposed to inhabit were not made for her, and so she runs away with the wind. Which, knowing the history of Loredana Bertè, fits the narrative, we might say. Then we have the second verse. What happens in this second chapter of the travel of the moon? She tries again. And where does she go? Let's find out. E la luna bussò su 2 occhiali da sole. And the moon knocked on 2 sunglasses. Quello sguardo non si accorse di lei. That look didn't notice her. Ed allora provò ad un party in piscina. And then she tried a pool party, at a pool party. Senza invito non entra nemmeno la luna. Without an invitation, not even the moon enters. Quindi rotolò su champagne e caviale e se ne andò. So she rolled on champagne and caviar and went away. A cercare un po' più in là qualche cosa da fare. To look a little farther on for something to do. Dopo aver pianto un po', per un altro no, per un altro no. After having cried a little for another no, for another no di un cameriere, of a waiter. Now, we have our moon who left the place where she was supposed to be and she goes to knock on two sunglasses. Now, what these sunglasses could mean? Who is wearing sunglasses usually? What is this accessory related to? Of course, the beach, right? So people having fun, probably a reference to vanity, but they are also a barrier because, of course, if we have sunglasses, we can use it to hide ourselves. And so probably also detachment. Once again, someone that maybe is not emotionally available. And in fact, this person with the sunglasses doesn't notice her, which is conveying the idea that with this person wearing the sunglasses, she feels invisible. And so she goes away. Where does she go? She goes to a pool party. Now, normally, generally speaking, pool parties are often associated to luxury and thus people belonging to high social statuses. But there is a problem. She cannot enter into this party, so she cannot have access to higher level of society. Because without invitation, so without respecting the social norms, not even the moon can enter. The moon, something that is symbol of beauty, emotion, femininity, something that we as human beings need because otherwise the earth wouldn't work properly without it. So it doesn't matter how necessary, how beautiful inside out you are, doesn't matter who you are, without abiding to social norms, you are rejected. And in fact, she rolls on champagne and caviar, so making a mess, ruining the party, and goes away. She cries because even the waiter told her no. But this time she doesn't try again. And in fact, this last line is, we don't have the repetition like in the first verse. And finally she finds a place. Where does she find it? Is the chorus, which is repeated 2 times, and in between there is an instrumental intermission, an instrumental bridge. The chorus is going to tell where is the place of the moon, where the moon belongs. E allora giù, and then down, quasi per caso, almost by chance, più vicino ai marciapiedi, closer to the sidewalks, dove è vero quel che vedi, where is true what you see. E allora giù, and then down, senza bussare, without knocking, tra le ciglia di un bambino, among the eyelashes of a child, per potersi addormentare, to be able to fall asleep. E allora giù, and then down, fra stracci e amore, among rags and love, dove un lusso la fortuna, where luck is a luxury, c'è bisogno della luna, there is a need for the moon. E allora giù, and then down, giù, giù, down, down. So, where does the moon belongs? Down. This action of going down usually is related, associated to a negative action, as in falling, but in this case it is more about getting down to earth. In Italian we would say avere I piedi per terra. Because this way she finds her place. what is this place? Where is this place? This place is closer to the sidewalks where what you see is true. So, what do the sidewalks represent? The common people, but also the excluded, and the authentic, where you can see true life, true authenticity, without the masking of social rules. So, where people are true, where people are authentic. And where is that we can find them? Well, in a place where you don't need to knock, so you are always welcome, like at your home. Among the eyelashes of a child, so in places where there is innocence, vulnerability, and peace. A place where you are able to fall asleep, so basically where you can rest in purity and tenderness, because all these concepts are usually associated to the figure of the child. And again, where is this place? Fra stracci e amore, among rags and love. So, where there is poverty, and yet where there is true love, because a genuine connection, genuine love, it is found despite hardships. There you can find the authentic love. So, where is needed the moon? The moon is needed where just a bit of luck is considered luxury. So the place of the moon is among those who need them, is among those in need. And so she keeps going down, down, as in a metaphor probably to grounding in reality and care. Because the place where the moon can take care and can be taken care of is the right place where she can be. So, these were the lyrics of E la luna bussò by Loredana Bertè. And it fits pretty much the narrative of the story of Loredana Bertè, who didn't have the best of lives, as we already found out a bit thanks to Mia Martini, her sister. Because Loredana Bertè explained in several interviews, more recent ones, however, because she started to talk about these matters mainly after the death of her sister. For example, she explained that she had a very hard childhood because she had a violent father and a distant mother. So, of course, she wasn't in the healthiest of the parent-child relationships. And this sadly translated also in very problematic relationships. Also, for example, she always been a rebel, as Non sono una signora shows. Let me know in the comments if you want me to talk about Non sono una signora. But it is also a theme that comes out in different nuances in more recent songs by Loredana Bertè, for example, Pazza. The song she brought, the song that was her entry for Sanremo 2024, because in 2025 she did not participated. And in fact, Pazza is more about her wanting, like expressing the will to forgive herself and accept herself as it is, as she is, because she had quite of a rough life. And this song specifically started a bit to present a theme that then changed through the years, because changed with the artist and with the person, which is this feeling of rejection. Long story short, this is a story of a person that was rejected by the environment where she was supposed to be, so probably her family where she was born. But she was also rejected by high society. She became a famous artist because she is objectively one of the most successful Italian artists, even nowadays. And of course, she was rejected even by that environment for a series of reasons that I don't even know, to be honest, because of course she was, as I said, a rebel. So of course she wasn't well accepted. It was a scandal when she marched on Sanremo scene dressed as a bride, but a pregnant one, to sing Non sono una signora, if I remember correctly. And it was like a scandal because back in the days that was not acceptable. So of course probably this rebellion against the society rule that, as I said, we see mentioned, even if between the lines, rejected her. And so, but in the end, she says, I found my place among my people. My people are those who are in difficulty and where love and people are authentic. And thus, I want to be there. And to be fair, this aged well because she, as far as I know, because again, my knowledge of gossip is very limited to what I read because I'm not really into it. So as at least from like an external view, I can say that the meaning of the song aged quite well, still being coherent with the persona of Loredana Bertè, with who Loredana Bertè is as an artist. So now I can leave you the floor. The floor is yours. You can tell me in the comments what you think about this song. That said, grazie everyone for watching and arrivederci.